The news struck deep, which was odd, because I never really knew Joanna. Maybe once or twice I've seen her in passing before Casey left for another trip. But in this moment, time seemed to have slowed down. The minute of silence after the news felt like an hour. I asked, how did it happen? Casey's arm pain seemed to have fallen by the wayside. Apparently my emotions must be written all over my face. Mel explained that Joanna never got any better after the Montgomery house. Her cough just got worse and worse to the point where she was coughing up blood. They took her to the hospital, but it was far too late. I sat on the edge of Casey's bed and listened to Mel. Casey sat up quickly to hear what was going on. In that exact moment, with one ear to Casey and the other one on the phone, I could hear both Mel and Casey writhe in pain, almost in sync. Something was wrong. I said to Mel, sit tight, I'll be over in a minute. I hung up the phone, and Casey, through his pain, asked what happened. I sighed, and I gave Casey the hard news. Once again, it was almost as if the pain in his arm was non-existent. He was in utter shock, and I could tell tears were beginning to form. I continued by telling him I also think there's something wrong with you and Mel. We have to go to his house now. Casey couldn't even get a word out. He just simply nodded. I helped Casey slide out of bed, and I wrapped his arm in a makeshift sling. Me, Casey, and his mother hop into the car and drive as fast as we can to Mel's house. When we arrived, we see the door was slightly ajar. We push it open and see Mel near the threshold. It seemed that Mel stumbled down the stairs and unlocked the door before collapsing. He was barely conscious. Me and Casey went to go pick him up, but of course his arm wouldn't allow it, so me and Casey's mother picked him up instead, and as Mel fully arose from the ground, Casey gasped. The calf of his left leg was slowly turning a dark shade of purple. We immediately put Mel in the car and sped to the hospital. Time passed, and Mel was admitted into a room. Mel slept for some time, and Casey's mother left to get us something to eat. Casey refused to leave his side. Slowly, Mel began to wake up. He looked around the room, confused of his surroundings. When his eyes landed on Casey, his gaze became cold. He scoffed, and with his weak voice he said, "Surprised to see you stuck around." Casey was taken aback by his comment and demanded to know what was his problem. I could tell a pretty serious argument was brewing, so I excused myself from the room. I went to go get a cup of coffee, and I paced in the hallway relatively close to Mel's room. From there, I could hear their voices elevated, but I couldn't make out what they were saying. I sat in a chair and waited for the argument to pass. Eventually, the arguing ceased. The two voices yelling back and forth became only one. But then I realized, one voice. What replaced its absence was a long, monotone beep. I stood up quickly as nurses began to rush past me into the room, kicking Casey out to make space. Casey's face was red and shined with tears. Casey's mother arrived shortly after, but when she saw the commotion, she dropped everything and ran to our side. Her and I just held Casey as the nurses did everything that they could. Mel was pronounced dead shortly after. We sat in the waiting room, stunned by the news. No one knew what to say. All we could do was comfort Casey. A nurse came to us and offered condolences for our loss. He then proceeded to explain exactly what led to his death. It was something that not a single medical professional has seen in their entire careers. It was an infection that rushed through Mel's body with speeds that were deemed impossible. It managed to travel from his leg to the rest of his body in a matter of minutes, maybe even less. The infection was caused by various cuts on his left calf. But not just any kind of cuts, it appeared to have been carved. How there was a carving on his calf muscle without breaking the skin above it in any way absolutely bewildered the entire operating room. They ran Mel's body through an MRI scan, and it was revealed that they were not just random carvings. The carving spelled one singular word that stretched along the back of his leg. Unforgiving.